Alright guys, welcome to RC Mojo. Some more MF-01X this week and we're on to bag C. Looks like it's all going to be rear suspension. Okay, let's see what we've got. A pair of chrome springs, springy, nice. Ball caps, screws bag, some O-rings and drive cups, a nice set of bits. I'm going to pop the contents of the bags into some pots so we don't lose anything. Right then, bag C, step 19. We're going to need some bits to make up the two rear lower arms. That's two C19s and two C11s. Each arm needs two self-tappers. Also in this step we make up the top arms, so we'll need two of the short threaded shafts and four ball caps. The lower arm parts have some little marks at one end. You want to make sure both end up on the same side. If you get it wrong, the shafts won't fit when we get to installing them. When you've got them the right way round, install the two self-tappers. The arms are quite soft, so wait for it. Don't over tighten them. Anyway, the top arms are simple enough to assemble. Grab the shaft with a pair of pliers and some card so you don't rub off the coating. Grip nice and tight and thread one of the cups on the end. Flip it over and fit the other one on the other end. Aim to make them match the actual size diagram on the page. It's normally a pretty good starting point. And of course, we'll need two of them. Nice. Step 20. Looks like all we need is a couple of screw pins. The arms will quite happily fit both ways up, so match up the parts with the manual. The arm is quite a loose fit on the chassis, but it'll do. The pin slides in and gets done up, so it's just snug. Same goes for the other side. The manual says to use some grease, but the truck's going to see some mud at some point, so it'll just turn into grinding paste, so I'm going to leave it dry. Step 21, which Tamiya amusingly calls rear dampers. Not sure dampers are quite the correct description, however we're building stock so you have to start somewhere. There's quite a few plastic bits in these. There's the caps, C15, retainers, C7, bodies, C6, washers, C5, shafts, C12, and of course some springs. Okay, grab a body and line up the cap on the top. Line up the holes with the holes in the body. Press on the retainer with the flange down. Pop on a washer followed by a spring. Lightly press the shaft into the bottom of the body and rotate it until it drops in. Then rotate it a bit more until it locks itself into place. And there we go, one springy pogo jobby thing. I must admit it's quite a neat set of mouldings, requires no tools and makes something that looks a lot like a proper damper. Just a shame it's completely undamped. In case you were wondering, we'll need two of those for the next bit, so make two if you haven't already. Step 22. We're going to need some spacers. Two A11s and two A10s. Don't get them mixed up or the dampers won't sit straight. We'll also need four shoulder screws, the large silver ones. Pop one of the screws through the top of one of the dampers and slide on one of the A11 spacers. Offer it up to the top mount of the chassis and do it up. The plastic is quite hard. I found I had to really brace the back of the mount to stop it bending with the pressure I was putting through the screwdriver to make sure it didn't slip. Be careful. The screwdriver in the finger is quite painful. Not as bad as a chisel though. That was a fun afternoon. Might as well pop the other one on while we've got the chassis up the right way. Same warnings apply. The bottom of the dampers are quite similar, just a little more fiddly as everything keeps moving. Pop a shoulder screw through and slide on a A10 spacer and install it in the hole in the lower arm. Not the most outside hole, that's where the hub goes, but the one just inside. The arms are quite a bit softer than the chassis, so the screw goes in quite easily. So watch out for over tightening. Same goes on the other side. Right, onwards. Step 23. Body mounts and drive cups. The rear body mounts are the long ones on the C tree, C9. We need two of those. There's also C10, the antenna mount, but we'll get to that in a minute. We need two of the inner drive cups. They're the short ones. One of the drive shafts is handy too, to use as a tool. Two O-rings, three self-tappers, and here's the antenna mount I mentioned before. Okay, the O-rings are to tension the drive shaft, to stop it rattling around causing noise and of course wear. They can be a bit of a fiddle to install. They need to lie flat inside the cup. Usually you can pop the O-ring in, then press it the rest of the way with a drive shaft. If it's not flat on the bottom, you might want some tweezers to fish it out. The body mounts have a square hole moulded into the bottom, which just so happens to fit the square ends on the bit that protrudes from the chassis. The left one will need the antenna mount fitting too. It just slots in above the second hole and gets attached with a self-tapper. With a 2.4 gig radio, it's questionable whether you actually need a mount, but if your antenna will fit up inside an antenna tube, it's a good way to get it vertical and up out the way of all the metal parts in the chassis. Slot the body mounts on and fit the self-tapper on each side. Then pop the drive cups in the rear diff. The manual calls for some more grease, but since we're using ball bearings, all it would do is attract grit, so we'll leave them dry. Step 24. And we have two options here, high or low ground clearance. If you look at the instructions for the body, it says we need to build with high clearance. Now, I'm not going to put it out, but keep an eye out for my related and not quite deliberate mistake. We need two rear hubs from the bright red tree, because hubs on cars are always red. I suppose it's the next best thing after red brake drums. Anyway, we need a pair of extensions from the B tree, the two outer drive cups, two O-rings, some brass ball ends and some self-tappers. Lastly, we'll need a couple of bearings. Right then, there's a left and a right assembly, B13 on one side and B12 on the other. The extension part locates itself quite nicely on its own, which makes it really easy to fit the screw. I was a little bit dubious about this part of the build. Turns out it's actually quite solid. Looks like you could fit a second screw, but I don't think it's going to make all that much of a difference. Pop a bearing over the drive cup and install an O-ring. Just like the last set, use a drive shaft to push it in. Fit one of the brass ball ends in the top hole in the extension. Make sure you fit it in the right side. Press the cup into the hub and the assembly is complete. Make up the other one and we're ready to move on to the next bit. Step 25. We're putting it all together. We need the two hubs, two drive shafts, two screw pins and the top arms. Slide one of the hub assemblies onto the lower arm and insert a screw pin. Tighten it up, but not too tight, Install the drive shaft, slotting the end into the cups as you raise the hub to vertical. Press the top arm ball cups into the brass balls. The cups are really soft, so you can just clip them on by hand. If you use pliers, you risk distorting them. The other side is exactly the same, but just a mirror image. Well, that's the rear end more or less complete. Just the motor, last two bearings and some hexes left, I do believe. So far I'm quite impressed, but I'm afraid that will have to do for this video. The second time we've managed a complete bag in one go. But this was a small bag, but a goal's a goal. Next is bag D, which will finish the chassis assembly. Should be fun. Right, thanks for watching. If you like the video, do please hit the like button. If you want us to show up in your subscription feed, then subscribe. It's free after all. Bye guys.